Good morrow, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Fantasy Folk, where we discuss all things in the fantasy genre, from books and games to television and film. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me, as my traveling companion down these fantastical roads, as always, is Ron. How are you today, Ron?
I'm doing great, brother. Realizing now I've got kind of like a floating head thing going, so maybe it kind
Yeah,
of adds to like the mystical. Yeah, 'cause I got the black hoodie here on, so I'm kind of like Zombie from Pee Wee's Playhouse. Anyway, I'm doing good, man. We're kind of heading into the home stretch here for Rings of Power, our first project that we are covering on this show. It's been really exciting, and I'm excited to keep that going with you today.
yeah, we'll be talking episode 6 of the Rings of Power season 2. But before we do, as always, we are going to spend a short time just talking about what we've done in the fantasy world, uh, or fantasy related, non sexually, in the past week. Ron, I don't know, Witcher 3 could be considered sexually as well. But what have you what have you been doing?
You took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, I've just been kind of keeping up with Witcher 3. We were talking off screen. I told you I just did the battle for Kaer Morhen. Horrible with names, if you guys didn't already know that from watching this show so far. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I've been unable to pull myself away from it in like all of my free time. So that's basically pretty much how I've been spending my off time. Yeah.
Does it did yours come with the DLC? Like, do you have the DLC? Have you touched on that stuff yet?
So I was going to ask you about that off screen, but I guess I'll ask you about it now. So is it something? Because I know there's some games like when you buy them after the DLC comes out, it's just like basically another thing that pops up on the map, and you can just do it in whatever order, and it doesn't really affect the story. Is that like that for The Witcher, or is it something where you can't even touch the DLC until you've beaten the main story?
No, you can touch it. I think once you hit a certain level, I think that stuff opens up. Or like you can at least trigger it, and then it'll tell you. You know how it tells you the level. Uh,
Mhm.
like I already have quests from that popping up for me to like go kick it off, but it
What
says like
is it?
level
And I'll be
30
able to tell you
something.
right now if I've played it.
I don't know. It usually has like a tag at the bottom that says like um, it'll have like the DLC logo on it,
Oh, okay.
and it'll be like that way you know. But I think they're like level 30 something quests, so
Okay.
definitely I never have finished the DLC. I think I started it after it came out originally, and then I just kind of fell off of it. I felt like I'd
Mhm.
beat the game already and didn't want to. So like I'm going to on this playthrough because I'm still going as well. I'm going to probably just go before the end story and try to do some of that stuff. I've
Mhm.
heard it's like really expansive, like that they have added a lot in there. So I'm really excited to finally dive into it, and doing it like mid story. I think could be a lot of fun instead of getting like the high of beating the game and then being like, oh, I actually got this other stuff to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I just got to Novigrad today on my lunch break, and met up with Triss.
Mm.
I was doing a lot of side missions, just spending a lot of time trying to find different markers and stuff like that on the map for a bit in the rest of Velen before and I finished the Bloody Baron quest, which
Mm.
sucks now because I'd gotten to a point where now I can't get the Gwent card from him.
Yeah. Yeah. Why did he take a long walk off a tall tree yet? Is that what
No,
you're referring
he
to?
took
Oh.
he's alive. He just takes his
Oh.
wife somewhere. I reunited them, and he took her somewhere to get help. So he's gone. But even when I before I trigger that quest and it says like go to Down Warren to kick off the quest, it won't let me play Gwent with him because I had another save I
Mm.
went back to try to see if I could do that.
Hate when that happens.
Yeah, it sucks. But I'll have to replay it anyway because I do want to eventually get the platinum for this, and I feel like I have to play on the hardest difficulty to get that. So then
Mm.
I guess I could try to get like all the Gwent stuff on that run, but we'll see.
Mm. It's
Also,
been, it's been a very refreshing change after my last. I mean, we've talked a little bit about the Elden Ring of it all on here. So going from that to this, and I'm playing it on. I forget what but one above normal, so like the
Hmm.
decent challenge, and it's been it's been good. It hasn't been too much, I've died here and there, but it's been uh just way more palatable than fucking Elden Ring. Like that's basically just the best way I could put it.
It's funny. I was talking to Jack, who just got a PS5, and I was telling him that like I own Elden Ring, and I was like, I'm probably gonna have to try it at least once since I already own it. And he was like, "Oh no, Ron told me to stay away from it."
I'm spreading the gospel of
I was like,
anti.
"Yeah, he's not a big fan of it." I was like, "I already own it though, so I might as well put it in."
Screw your tarnished. The only thing tarnished is that game.
But yeah, so that's been a lot of fun. Also, my fantasy football team is 2-0.
Ah, nice.
So in the
Mine's
world
one.
of fantasy.
Yep.
All right, so we can get into this here. We have Rings of Power season 2, episode 6, called "Where Is He?" Directed by Sanaa Hamri and written by Justin Dobble, and it premiered September 19th, 2024 on Amazon Prime Video. So let's get into this here. A lot of people hyped up last week's episode. You were hyping up this one. War starts. But not really, right? Like it got close to it. It got close to it. What was your thoughts here on Where Is He?
I thought it was okay. Admittedly, just having expected this to be the episode that kicks off the war and everything like that, it just there was a few times where I caught myself kind of looking at the clock, being like, "Come on, like, what are we doing here?" Like, because they wasn't there a quote that we read on this show or something where one of the creators or the writers or something said like the last 3 episodes of this show were just mayhem.
I'm not sure if I read that, but I definitely know I quoted something from an interview saying that the battle stretched for like 3 episodes.
Okay, so that was a
And
lie.
I'm sure it does, like in the sense of them filming. Like they had to film this end part, and like maybe the way stuff got shifted around or something. I don't know. Like the way that they film stuff typically is that way. So I mean, they probably were looking at it more of like a technical standpoint of we filmed 3 episodes
Yeah.
worth of this battle, but it was you know obviously just kicking off at the end, not like actually taking place. But I do think it was needed, actually. I do think we need it. We talked last week, Ron, like, do you come back and have the rings already done or not? And I do think it was actually needed to not have those done and have this kind of set up here. To really show how Celebrimbor is losing it a bit more under the influence.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he even forgets what Mirdania's
Murdania is.
name.
Yep.
I almost forgot her name. So, oh no, the ring is making me forget her name. But when you have like stuff like that going on, and you see Sauron even making another bigger play here of,
Mm-hmm.
he goes out there and says, "Hey, actually, he told me to take care of this whole city right now," and the people just have to kind of take it because they don't know what was really going on, and
in the way that Annatar sort of uses like him cracking under his pressure to further isolate him from everybody. Like I know we've made the like the gaslighting analogy on the show a few times, but that is another textbook example of gaslighting. Like trying to isolate a person from all of their friends and everyone that they care about, and like basically so you're the only message going into their head sort of thing. So it's just another one of those classic traits that you see in, like toxic spouses and things like that.
yes, yeah.
There's a lot of parallels with how Mr. Annatar has handled all of this, not just with Celebrimbor, but with Galadriel and everybody.
This quote keeps coming back up. This is a quote that he said when he was Halbrand and he's locked in Numenor, right?
Mm.
He manipulates Galadriel. At that point, we don't know he's Sauron, but he says, what do? You find out what people fear, and you give them the solution to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's doing, right? Like, Celebrimbor's fear of having the forge shut down or not having lived up to his potential, right? And I'll give you the answer to that. These rings are going to make you're going to become the Lord of the Rings. You are going to be well known. You are playing into the ego, but it's also the fear of Celebrimbor, like not knowing, at that point before the three rings, while he is considered one of the best elven like forgers and stuff, he still didn't have that like that. It's like if LeBron James didn't win a championship. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? It's
yeah.
like you have that
His
in the background.
legacy.
It's like, oh, you didn't. Yeah, the legacy. So that he does that, and then with some of the other characters, right? The dwarves. It's giving them the rings to solve their issue, right? And it's all of these things going on that he is putting the pieces. I would love to find out that actually the elves were never going to fade, and that
Yeah. Oh
he
yeah.
made them think they were, and it's this, oh, we have these rings that will save you from this, and
Mm.
it's like giving them the answer to it and making them fall under control pretty much by giving them the answer of the things that they seek. And he does it so masterfully, and Charlie Vickers is so good in this. I know we're kind of bouncing around real quick, but I just saw a behind the scenes thing from earlier that shows how they filmed that switch from like when Celebrimbor goes back inside and the camera moves and it becomes night and you see everybody
Oh,
running and stuff. It
so
was
dope.
done. It was done physically. I'm guessing they had like a volume type thing where it was day and then it starts shifting to night and you start seeing the people as they were hiding there, like start sprinting around, running like whoa,
Nice.
and it was done so well. Like I'll try to see if I can retweet it on our Twitter account at fantasyfolkpod. But like that was very well done too. I really liked the way that changed and how they did that. That was all really cool.
Yeah, yeah. Everything. I mean, I said it last week, and I'll just reiterate it here. Like the Annatar storyline is so head and shoulders above everything else in this show. It's kind of crazy, and that I'm glad that you brought up that because I was going to bring up that illusion too. That was a very cool thing. And I was wondering how that was accomplished. That's crazy that they were to do it on that they were able to do it on that kind of stage. There was something else that I wanted to mention about Annatar too. Oh yeah, and at the end of the episode, he has the Mithril. So like that's because I mean obviously we saw Durin say
They,
no,
yeah.
and it's kind of like you know at first you're like oh good he's finally coming to his senses. Oh no shit, never mind. He's just even more greedy now. Like he's like if you want the Mithril for your armor and stuff, you're gonna pay for it basically. And uh,
Jack
and
up the price. Yeah,
yeah,
that's pretty much
exactly.
they're alluding to.
He becomes more and more a U.S. politician with every episode. I'll say that much. I'll say that much.
Durin 2024.
Make Middle Earth great again, lads.
Oh boy. But yeah, so that was a little twist there. I want to kind of I want to kind of stick with Annatar, but I want to bring up something that happened in Numenor and how I think, like, just to get your thoughts on it. But
Palantir?
huh?
Palantir?
No, it was actually yeah, that's a good point though too. But with Numenor, how they would say the sea is always right, right? And we see Tar Miriel get put into the water, and the sea creature comes up and judges innocent, right?
Mm-hmm.
We saw like this same sea creature spare Sauron in the water in the premiere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and some people are saying, well, actually, he was able to control the sea creature. So, but like, yeah, what's your thoughts on that? Are we supposed to look at it a little differently now? Of like, oh, they actually spared Sauron as well.
No, I think you nailed it. Exactly what everybody else is saying. I think it was just he is too strong. You know, he is able to manipulate. anything and everything that he sees fit. And I think, sea monsters who, as powerful as it might be, probably doesn't, its intelligence score probably isn't super duper high. Although, I mean, if it stands fit to be, the judge of this entire people, then who knows? Maybe I'm just talking out of my rear end there. But yeah, I think it was very much just meant to show you that, like, this human being, despite just being in a human form, is still so powerful that he can basically, with a thought, just totally get this creature, like, off his tail, sort of thing. So I don't think it'll connect to that too much. At least in the set, like, maybe next season when we see Annatar go to I literally just said the name. I can't
Numenor.
believe Numenor. Like, maybe it'll pop up again then, and, like, there will be some kind of connection. But yeah, I don't think it was. I should say, I do think it was meant to just show how strong Sauron is.
Yeah, pretty cool. I do also like the idea of maybe the judging him almost like innocent, in the sense of not even really judging him innocent, but maybe even like almost like a fate thing of this is the way
Mm,
things have to play out, which
yeah.
it may not be that, but I just think it's cool kind of seeing that almost come right back around at the end of the season, or midway through the season here
Yep.
after the premiere. Um okay, so and anything else about Celebrimbor and the ring? So we know he's sending him back in to finish the job.
Mhm.
So I would assume that he's going to be forging these rings while Eregion is crumbling around outside of him without him even knowing. Like, he puts that thought in Celebrimbor's mind that and everything's fine, right?
Mhm.
Like, Celebrimbor's literally going to be the dog in the ring of fire, just being like, everything's fine, like this is fine, as he's
Yeah.
sitting there like forging away. Maybe we have to make that a meme or something, but yeah, that's I think that's where we're heading for, and maybe like he's going to finish those 9 almost like right before this thing gets destroyed. I would think.
So in the trailer, we see a couple shots that are relevant to this. We see one where Annatar, he's like got Celebrimbor's like head in his hands, and he tells them, "Finish the 9, and I will spare your city." So I'm guessing,
He
next
wakes up at
episode.
a certain point.
Yeah, next episode is when he's finally going to realize, like, oh, this is actually like Sauron. This was never Annatar. Annatar is not a real thing. We also see Galadriel talking to Celebrimbor, and she says, "I won't let you face him alone." That was also in the trailer. So I'm gonna guess next week is probably where Celebrimbor bites it. I'm gonna guess he probably sacrifices himself in some way, like maybe thinking that Annatar won't be able to complete any more rings if he's not there. Like, not to get dark with it, but like maybe like does it himself, sort of thing. You know what I mean? To like take himself off the board and conceivably in his mind, not has Sauron would have no other option to create rings at that point. Obviously, we know that won't be the case, but I do think that next episode is going to be the Celebrimbor crescendo of
Mm.
this whole season. I think for sure.
And I think that's the way to go, right? Like uh they need to have him realize that he was had.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's what you need to have happen here. So I could see it going that way, and I think that's you know, we see in the one thing how he's got like a million arrows through him in the
Mhm.
one vision, and I do wonder how they're going to do that. Who's going to be the one to shoot him? Is it like the orc side of it? Is it the elven side of it? Not knowing who they're firing at, because if he
Mhm.
can make people think that the whole city looks fine, I mean, he could potentially Sauron could be putting thoughts in people's head that ends up with a
Mhm.
tragic death here. But I'm not saying that's the way it's going to go, but
Because
just
I
kind of
almost
speculating.
like when I saw like Celebrimbor, you're talking about in Galadriel's vision earlier this
Yes,
season,
yeah.
like with the arrows and he's bound to the tree. I saw that more as a symbolic thing. I don't know if I would say that that's like exactly how he's going to die. I think it was more just kind of foreshadowing his death in general. I could be wrong there, but I don't think, I wouldn't bog myself down too much in thinking, oh, he's got to die in this exact way we saw him earlier in the season. I almost feel like it would be a little too on the nose to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think because the fact of the matter is that it was the same season that they're doing it, I feel like it, it would just be foreshadowing in that sense. So I would
Yeah.
be fine if that's how they, I don't know. It's a war that has all these arrows coming too. So I do think he'll probably
Yeah.
end up getting, um, killed by him. Let's see. Anything else about the Eregion stuff?
No, it was all pretty straightforward. It focused mostly on that Celebrimbor and Sauron slash Annatar dynamic. It wasn't anything super groundbreaking, more just kind of reinforcing things that we already knew and preparing us for what's probably going to be a pretty crazy battle over these next 2 episodes. So full steam ahead from here.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about. Do you want to talk about the dwarfs now or Numenor?
Let's do it. Let's talk about Durin and Disa.
Yeah. So that's what they're currently working on, right? Is Durin trying to get the ring off of his father's finger? It does not
Mm-hmm.
go well. He ends up getting forcefully pushed back, right, when he's trying to remove it.
He's got a great line in there too when Father Durin's like, "It belongs to me," and he goes, "No, you belong to it." Like I was like, "Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
bars right there." Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I love Durin so much. I do worry
Me too.
for him getting corrupted as well at some point. We talked about it last week of, usually Durin is alive one at a time. They're usually not, uh, you know, two of them alive at once. So you worry, like, is that how they're going to fix it? That this is the Durin that gets corrupted and our Durin is ultimately going to be good? Or is he going to end up getting corrupted when we're talking about removing him, right? Disa's like, look, if he does what you say, right, in the sense of Durin's like, hey, if we try this, he's going to send the army after us to stop them. And she's like, well, if he does that, that'll show how far gone he is and that he's not himself, that people will wake up and see. And one, this hurts Durin because I forget what the line he said was, but it's kind of like almost like, why are you trying to like almost embarrass him like this, right? Like this is a tough thing, right? Like he's not himself. He's conflicted as well, is what, Durin is conflicted on how his father is. He knows his dad's in there somewhere. He says that, like, I know he's still in there somewhere, but we can't get him to. And then, she has to pretty much say, no, I get it. Like, I love him more than I love my parents. Because apparently we don't really know what Disa's parents have been doing, but she's not very close with them and kind of feels more closer to King Durin. So it's almost like, how I want to word it. It's almost like if this was like a real family in our world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take off kings and rings and all that kind of stuff, but that, a husband and a wife and their dad, the husband's dad, having a falling out and trying to come to grips with that. Right. And she's going almost like scorched earth mode, and Durin's trying to still do placating stuff. But the answer might just end up being going no contact, right? Like, we don't know how it's going to work out, but it's just funny to see that in a relatable way.
Yeah, it's the age old adage of family versus family. It's like when it's an impossible situation to kind of be stuck in the middle of. And I'm interested to see what happens, but I'm also another thing in the trailer. Just we're just kind of popping around this episode. It wasn't,
Yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah. So in the trailer, Elrond goes to Khazad-dûm and asks Durin. He says, I need your axe for this battle that's coming up. So I am fearful that Durin's going to go and try to help with this battle in Eregion, and that's when the Balrog is going to come out and maybe gets both Father Durin and Disa. I really, really hope not. Disa's great, and I think they probably know she's one of the more popular characters in the show, so I don't think they would kill her off that soon. But maybe she's there and has to see King Durin sort of pay for his greed essentially by freeing this Balrog. But it seems like there's a powder keg situation there that's going to pop off once Durin actually leaves, young Durin.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. I'm not sure. Just thinking about it, I wasn't ever thinking that he would end up maybe going to Eregion and stuff, but that would be quite the interesting conundrum with that. Especially like I said, we haven't seen the Balrog. We know it's supposed to appear this season.
Well, we do see it briefly when Annatar is in Khazad-dûm. He just really quickly sees its head start to pop up from the fire, and he's like, "All right, you want to deny me? All right."
Yes, but I mean, we don't see it like the full-fledged attack that we thought we would be getting so far. So I do think that's going to play over the course of these 2 episodes. I think Durin will probably be staying here. Okay, this is my only, I'd say, downside of the show so far out of the 2 seasons is we have a killer cast, absolutely killer. So far, we've barely had them interact with people outside of their little structure, right? Mm-hmm. This is like the Starks are still in Winterfell type of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's fine. I will eventually get there. It just is frustrating when we had that great rapport between Elrond and Durin, and that they haven't even really met each other this season,
Yeah.
So that's kind of tough. But like I said, it's all going to pay off when we get season 5 and we have the last alliance of men and we have everybody teaming up together, I hope. That's my
Elrond hope. On your left, laddie. The portal opens up.
And then it's Poppy that walks out. Yeah. So that's my one downside so far, because so far they feel so separated. We got a little bit of the Celebrimbor and Eregion side with the dwarves, but so far they've just been so separated. So I'm hoping, even I know I said season 5, Last Alliance of Men, but I'm hoping we get more and more. When we had Isildur and Arondir teaming up earlier this season, I was like, wow, this is cool again. Seeing these 2 characters collide.
They did it last season too. They brought everybody together.
For
the battle against the orcs, and then they just
Galadriel, Halbrand, Isildur, Elendil,
Arondir. I hope that's not. I hope that's not I hope that's not a trend that just every season it's like, okay, we're just gonna have everybody on their own for the entire time, and then at the end we bring them all together. No, we want to see these characters interact more. The relationships between these characters that are so popular is the thing that's going to keep people coming back,
Yeah, I think we'll get there. We have Gandalf. All right,
yeah.
I'm calling it. He's Gandalf. He's searching for his staff. Yeah, I know, right? He's searching for his staff. So then he's got to do this first, though, and then he's going to go help Nori and Poppy, because Bombadil says, if you leave here, you're never coming back, right? You'll be off that path.
Did that one hit you weird, by the way? It's one of those things where I get the point that Bombadil's making of you're risking sacrificing the masses to try to save the few. It's a classic television tropey sort of thing, but I don't know. If he takes 2 days to go and find Nori and Poppy, is that going to be really the difference to the point where you're well, if you go do that, I'm not letting you back. You know what I mean? It's
look, as somebody that likes to write as well, it's very much we have to you have to do this because I'm telling you, you have to do this as the writer,
Yeah,
right? Like we
yeah.
have to get this part done. But
Well, that was the
I
thing.
think,
Yeah, just it felt a little like I don't want to say lazy, but it's like a little bit lazy. So like for narrative purposes, I'm just assuming that like wherever Bombadil is in comparison to like the Dark Wizard and all that stuff, it would take him like maybe 2-3 weeks, like valuable time they can't miss. Because like the way it's been presented, it seems like they're all kind of in that same general vicinity in the desert. So, like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like it would be. If anything, it seems like it would be a endearing thing for for Bombadil that Gandalf / the Stranger would want to go save his friends.
well, Bombadil's not very concerned with a lot, right?
With
Like,
anything, yeah.
yeah. So for him, it kind of tracks. But what I would say is, I think it wasn't so much a literal thing. Like, obviously, he could go help Nori and Poppy and come back. But it was when he's talking about your path, like the path you are on. It's more that. So, like, obviously, he could like physically do it. But the issue I think with it is, let's say he meets up with them, it's going to take him somewhere else, right? Like he's not going to be able to just double back. I don't think. Like, guys, come on, I got to go get my staff. Like at some point he would get roped into whatever they're doing again, and it's going to end up delaying even more and delaying even. So it's kind of like you're here, and it's like take it or leave it. You either have to do it now, grab it by the reins, grab your staff, and do it now, or you can delay and delay and delay, but you'll never get like back on the right path because anything can happen. Like he can meet up with Nori and Poppy and then end up that her being
It's
like,
like,
I need
oh,
to
we
look.
got to go do this now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I gotta look for the Shire. It's like, all right, yeah, I'll help you with that. Like we're already over here compared to going back there, and
Mhm.
um, I I think it's also just his path has been set by looking for that star and finding Bombadil under it. It's like fate almost. Like you are here already, get it done type of thing. But I know I can see what you mean though. Like I think literally he could do that, but
I also think it would have hit a little harder if Bombadil just like told him straight up like you are not strong enough to beat these people. You know what I mean? Like you need to find this staff and be able to channel
mhm,
your
mhm.
powers to be able to defeat them. I think it's a tiny little nuance that I think would have made his would have made the stranger's motivations and like choices a little more digestible. I think in that moment. But again, that's a small nitpick.
Yeah, yeah. So what'd you take of him looking for his staff? Like it looks like it's this petrified wood type area, right, where he
Yeah.
has to go and find his staff. This is really the only thing we got from him. It was like maybe two scenes with Bombadil, right?
Mhm.
Uh, not too much to talk about here with this. I do think eventually, this is one I actually want. If we're looking at a plot line, I want it more from. It is his right now
Mhm.
because I don't think he's going to get a lot of screen time in the finale here,
Yeah.
in the last two, because they're going to be a lot of focus on the war, I think. So
Mhm.
here's what I want. I want confirmation he's Gandalf this season. And I want him to get his staff. And then I think that's clearly what's going to. If I had to sketch it out here, I know we're all over the place today, but
Oh
if we
yeah.
had to sketch it out, I'm like, he gets his staff. I don't even know if we have to see him do it. Just he shows up with it, whatever. He's got a big branch,
Oh no, we gotta
right?
we gotta see it. It's got to be like some epic thing. Yeah, no, we gotta see it.
Uh, so he gets the branch, and then when he meets back up with Poppy and Nori, it comes at a time where they're maybe being chased by the men again, right? And he's there, and he wields it, and the one store later calls him a grand elf, and then
Mhm.
she's like, "Oh, Gandalf, yeah, yeah,"
Yeah.
and then he gets his name. He's like, I like that. It's Gandalf.
You shall not pass. Yeah.
You shall pass. I like that name.
Yeah.
Come on through.
Yeah, no, it's this. I wish I don't really know what the solution would have been either because I don't know if like more episodes would have helped it or if just like now that we know he's Gandalf, this path is just like a necessary one that we have to walk. It's like, yeah, we know he's going to find his staff and he's going to become Gandalf and all. And it's like, it's almost like we're just kind of in a waiting game until that happens so he can really enter the larger fray of the story, with all these characters that we've been talking about so far.
Yeah. Just wish we got more of him. I do think the answer to a lot of this stuff is always more episodes, right? Like, it doesn't have to be a lot more, but like, getting an episode where because lately he's getting like 2-3 scenes, right?
At most,
like,
yeah.
if he's in it. He wasn't in it last week at all, right? Yeah, last week was episode 5, but yeah, the Bombadil episode was episode 4, and then he was in like episodes 1 and 2, or episode 2, something like that. Those first 3 blend together because they were all released in one batch. So for me, they kind of mixed together.
I don't know what people were talking about when they were saying how Numenor got the shaft with screen time and all that stuff this season. Like, I think that the Stranger storyline, if any of them has gotten the shaft, like we've gotten like 3 scenes with this dark wizard. We got poor Arendir. Yeah. Poor Arendir has literally had nothing going on. He's literally just kind of bouncing around there. Like, and I understand that was probably largely due to the I forget his girlfriend's name in the show, but the actress leaving and all, like having to deal with all that. Probably
Bronwyn.
just Bronwyn,
right?
yes.
Isn't that what it was?
Yep. Probably just backed them into a corner. But like, Numenor is like probably like the third. It feels at least like it's like the third most featured thing in the show.
I think it's. So the original thing was that there was too much Numenor, and then they cut it back. But I think originally people were thinking maybe too less Numenor because of those first 3 episodes, right? Where they don't appear until the 3rd episode, Numenor, at all. Right?
Yeah, that is true. Yeah,
and Numenor are both like episode 3.
Yeah.
So I think you're like, wow, that's kind of crazy. But then since the coup happened, Numenor's gotten some good stuff, and they've been getting a little bit more screen time. And if you don't have anything else to say about the Stranger, Gandalf, we can talk about Numenor. Okay, Numenor. So we get Elendil, who, by the way, is like my favorite character on this show now.
Yeah, he grows on. Like I always.
He's got the Ned Stark going on here.
Yeah, big time. He grows on me by the week for sure.
Yeah, and the actor who plays him is just like I think one of the best actors in the show. Yes. So we have Elendil get a chance here where they're offering him in front of everybody to rescind, get forgiveness, right?
To bend the knee.
Right. And he only bends the knee for Tar Miriel. All right. So it's funny. I forget what the first question is, right? But he says like, "Yes, I do regret that," type of thing, right? Yeah. And then it's the, but do you regret? Do you see him as the true king? And it's like, nope.
Yep.
And you just see Earion's like, Dad, like, no, this is not good.
And we finally got a little bit of that. You said that you were dying to see some compassion and like being torn apart a little bit inside over it. And we saw that a few times this week.
Yeah, this was one of the scenes too when she meets him in his like prison cell right before he's going to get tossed into the water and get the old judgment. Where, she's like, "Father, what are you doing this for?" Right? It's your pride, and he has a great line. He's like, "If you think this is truly about my pride, then
we have nothing more to say to each other.
Yeah, we have nothing more to say to each other." And she takes that I think the wrong way, and she's like, "Oh yeah, okay, jerk," like, and she's getting ready to leave. But he sees it more as the right thing to do, right? That's the Ned Stark of it all. But I do also think there's this layer of he's fallen in love with Tar Miriel, right? And do you not think
You
that?
think?
I think so. I think so.
Ooh, that didn't cross my radar.
The way he's
But
so devoted to her, I mean, he's probably getting on both knees for her.
Okay. Yeah, no, I hadn't seen it that way. But maybe. Wouldn't totally shock me.
But he also sees her as like the true ruler, obviously.
Yeah, that's what I think. It
Yeah.
more. It's more just this was a huge injustice, and she has been screwed out of her rightful place, sort of thing. And he's a very honorable man.
Okay.
We got to use verbiage this week, man. What's wrong?
Look, and I could be wrong. It's just I feel like their chemistry is so good. I feel like he does
It
have a
is.
thing for her. So,
By the way, can I confess something?
yeah.
This is the first episode that I finally had it confirmed to me that she was actually blind. There are so many, every episode, I swear, every single episode, you see something, it's like, oh yeah, she's blind. And then she does something else and it's like, but she's looking directly at this person, making eye contact with it. It's very tough to tell. And I genuinely didn't know if they were trying to say oh, it was a short-term blindness or
Oh.
something like that. But
You're thinking she's pulling some sort of Larry David Curb Your Enthusiasm thing where she's acting blind.
yeah. I don't know. But yeah, this was the first episode. I was like, okay, she is most definitely blind. So maybe that's just me being.
What part of it sealed it for you?
When Elendil's daughter brings her into the cell, and she's just kind of standing there, not really looking at him, but talking, that was when I was like, okay, she's still blind. That's still a thing. Because usually in TV, what they'll do is when somebody's blind, they'll do the cataracts to kind of show it, the sort of film over the eyes, but
Yeah.
they don't in this show. So it maybe it's just me not picking up on things. I got no clue. But this was the first week that I was like, okay, she is most definitely still blind.
It's a safe space, Ron. You can share that thought. I thought she was blind the whole time, so I do. I don't have much to say there, but I think it is probably that they didn't do the glazed over thing in the eyes to do it, and I would assume it's because. I don't know, maybe because it's still a fresh blindness, or maybe because it has not it was just we don't know what caused it, right? It was the fire or the smoke or something, right? It was something like that from the Mordor.
We got a CG a fucking sea worm. We got to skip out on the contacts.
No contacts this week.
Not in the budget.
But what you're saying about her looking at him and stuff, but people will do that, right? Once I feel like once then she knew where to look. By him speaking, she'll look, right? Because it's just that instinct people have to try to have that connection with one another, to have each other look in their eyes, even if they're not physically able to look in their eye. They still want to turn their heads, so that way it makes the person realize, I'm acknowledging you, I'm listening to you, type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's a social cue.
Yep.
So, okay, I have a problem with Farazan, okay?
Me too. He's a bitch ass hoe.
Right. Well, one, I loved, he kind of put Kemen in his place. Kemen's like, do you need me to do something, fella? He's like, you've done enough.
You've done quite enough, boy. Yeah.
He obviously didn't want this to happen, right?
Yep.
He knows Elendil carries weight, right? Throughout Numenor. This is a big war hero guy who's, he's a captain. He is somebody that people respect, and he commands respect. Yep. And when you're staging a coup, the last thing you want to do is kind of have a poster boy for the rebellion be the most handsome, most handsome guy ever that is also, all right, commands respect. Commands respect, and he's a captain, and people really like him, right? So
And
there
his
is
luscious locks and
the
the way that his butt looks in that
hair
armor.
is great. The
Woo!
hair is great. It's that kind of stuff that, like, he's like, dude, you're making this so much harder for me, right? Is what
Yeah.
he's telling
Turned him into a
Kemet.
martyr.
But here's the problem I have with Farazan. Okay, he doesn't like that the faithful have started going back to the faithful stuff, right? And almost leaning into their friendship with elves and the old rules and all that. So him and his advisor say, "Look, you want the old rules? We'll judge you by the old rules."
Yeah.
And I say, "No, that doesn't make any sense." I'm sorry. Like, I get it's like it makes like sense when you're in like an argument with somebody, and you're like, "Oh, you want to pull that thing out? I'll pull this stat out or whatever." Like you're giving some sort of argument, and somebody's arguing something else and unfairly, and then you resort to that level.
It's like using their argument in bad faith against them.
Yes. And that's what he does with this. And it's like not the great move in a coup, because I feel like it also opens up the possibility of then people resorting to the old ways to solve stuff that is the way that you don't like, right? So because now it gets him in a predicament here where Miriel, who's been overthrown by him, says, I will actually go in for Elendil. This is part of the old rules. I will go instead. And they're like, great. This knocks out one of our rivals. Hallelujah. But what they don't account for is that they're in the right. And they get the thing of innocence. And she gets spared and she's alive. And now it's like, it's kind of like the Romans when they crucified Jesus. And then he comes back from the dead. They're like, oh, we kind of proved he is the Son of God. Like, damn it. Like, that's not what not what I wanted, right?
You're right. And I think it's showing very much, not just from that, but also starting to see the aforementioned, maybe a little bit of friction between him and Kemen. I think they're going out of their way to show us very quickly that Farazan is not at all fit to be in the position that he is in.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably going to make even more missteps along the way. Although, who knows how it's going to go now that, Miriel is once again, like, because we left off on a bit of an unsure note there, because it seems like everyone is once again on Team Miriel and they've moved on from supporting Farazan. But he is still the one. Like we see him go to the Palantir and stuff, so he's still like in that like royal domain, whatever the hell that is that they're in, the castle or whatever. their living quarters, the royal living quarters. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. But they're, like I said, they're making a point to show us that Farazan is unfit for this role. So when Annatar comes in with these rings, and it's like, hey, you need these. He's going to be even more prone to take them, especially after seeing the vision in the Palantir. Again, not to jump around. I think it's all setting up to kind of lead towards that, him not being fit and inevitably probably doubting himself in the future and being more prone to be under Sauron's control.
Yeah. It just gives the ammunition right back to the faithful now. And I do wonder where we go from here, because Farazan will eventually have to fall along with Numenor, but I don't think we're that close to the fall of Numenor yet. A lot of people I hear say that, that'd be more of a late season 3 type of thing. Mm-hmm. Well, he just to read what Elendil does in the actual text. I have some stuff here. So he was the leader of the faithful, which are those who remained loyal to the Valar, right? And he had a strong friendship with the elves, and he preserved the old ways against the practices of Farazan and Sauron. So eventually Sauron, of course, will come back. Um, now he has a son, Isildur. We have that in here as well. He also has a son, Anarion, who has been, I think, just made into Earion, right?
Mm.
Um, and at some point, they are going to Elendil is going to take the Palantir that we have, right? The Seeing Stones, and he's going to take a seedling of the tree, and he's going to go over to Middle Earth, and eventually he becomes the founder of Gondor and king of Gondor and all that kind of stuff,
Mm.
right? Because we know what Aragorn is one of the descendants of them and will uh, be the king.
Mm.
So that's the path. So if we see that path, and one of the things it says too is that it's unknown if his other son followed to Middle Earth. Okay, so Earion could end up being a casualty or could get stuck in Numenor. We don't know.
100%.
I think
100.
so too. I think so too. And then we will
Anytime
have.
they have a chance to, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off,
Oh,
but
you're good.
anytime they have a chance to kill an unnamed or kill a named character in an impactful way, in a way that doesn't disrupt canon, they are going to take it 10 times out of 10 in this show.
Yes. Yep. And actually, they may have just been talking about how his wife may not have followed him. It's kind of confusing in the article, but anyway, uh, I do think Yarian will probably be somebody that's lost due to that. And he leaves when Pharazôn and Sauron are preparing to assault Valinor. Okay, so it looks like in the text they try to take on a fight to Valinor and fight there.
That ain't going to end well.
No, so makes me wonder with Pharazôn, can he be? Will he be a long-term character on this, or will Kemen kind of take some of those later Pharazôn roles, or are we kind of locked in to Pharazôn and his actor for these next few seasons as they build up to this? I don't know. I think it could go either way. But we talked about before when it comes to the rings, how do you have Kemen or Pharazôn get them, right? Well, like you said, there's maybe now some more roadblocks between those two and their relationship that maybe it does lead to Kemen accepting a ring, or and maybe he's the one that actually will go with Sauron and displace his father and try to do the assault on Valinor or something, right? Like there's some stuff I could see here with them changing it.
Yeah, I could totally see that, especially if, like, I don't know, if the intent for Sauron would be to essentially just use the Numenorians as cannon fodder in this fight against Valinor, which seems like a futile effort even for Sauron, and it feels like he would know that. You know what I mean? So, like, that's where, like, is he knowingly just wanting to send the Numenorians to their death to prove a point and sort of, push some other narrative thing forward? Who knows? But
I think it's a bit of both. I could see it as him trying to gain a stronger army and knowing men are corruptible, he'll have more numbers.
mm,
But I also think it's like if we can get Numenor off the board, and then Valinor off the board, I have a good, like, nobody's going to interfere with Middle Earth.
mm,
Like, I will have complete control because none of those places will be coming over to help us. Plus,
mm,
he hates elves, right? So like Sauron will be able to, if he goes to Valinor, defeat them over there. I want to clarify something I said. So the other son actually does found the city of Minas Anor, which is Minas Tirith.
oh, okay.
Yeah, he will do that, and then Isildur finds Minas Ithil, which becomes Minas
mm,
Morgul.
mm,
Yeah, so there you go. So she could, if Iarian is in that spot, could do that, or since she is a created character for the show, pretty much, they could just kill her off. But
yeah.
her name is very close to that name of Enorian, so I think it's almost like just a little bit of a change there.
Because they do have to. We do need some named characters to die in this show. Like there has to be stakes with this. Like
Well, we're getting one probably next week with Celebrimbor. So
yeah. So, but like more of that. Like
Mhm.
that's what made, or not solely, but largely what made Game of Thrones so must see every week. That you never knew, and even book readers, you never knew who was going to bite it every week because they would change it up, they would do things differently. Like we need some more of that shock factor in this show for sure.
Well, I'll argue the opposite of it a little bit. I don't think we just need shock factor. Like I wouldn't compare the two. I think we'll get the character deaths and they'll hit, but it's gonna happen late. Like when it won't be shocking, right? But when Elendil and Gilgalad die, that'll be big because these
Yeah,
characters will have been around for 5 seasons at that
true.
point. Because those are two of the big ones, right? And
Mm,
Isildur lives a bit afterwards. Elrond lives, forever after that. Gandalf's not
Galadriel's
going
yeah.
anywhere, right? Nori and Poppy, they're probably not going to kill hobbits. Harfoots, I don't know.
Would be a heartbreaker, you know, and it would move the. I mean, again, just doing it just to do it would be like, but like if you can find a narrative way to do it, that could be a a turning point moment for this show and the stranger specifically.
And I'm trying to figure out. You could kill somebody like a Rondir because he is a made up character.
You shut your whore mouth. But like, no, you're right. He really is like a perfect example of somebody. As much as I
And we'll
love him,
probably lose King Durin, right? We'll lose King
yeah,
Durin, and that'll be a name. So there'll be some spread out. I think.
Disa.
You
I hate to
could,
say it.
you
I
could.
hate to say it, but Disa, yeah.
We will definitely lose Celebrimbor the next 2 weeks. So
Mm,
that'll be the first like big death.
mm,
Bronwyn wasn't a big death, but if it had been showed on screen, that could have constituted it. Because she left, though, it doesn't really feel that
yeah,
way.
no,
Did we lose anybody else in season one?
no, nobody of import.
No, yeah, I don't think so. None of the
That
main
was a
characters,
really
right?
weird way to say that.
Yeah, none of import.
Nobody of
How about
import.
export? Yeah. Well, we did lose Valandil as well. That was a shocker. That was a
Yeah,
shocker.
yeah. What? And it was great. It was great.
Yeah. So it could be something like that, or like a Kemen. Because you need the character
That would
that
be
gets the
great too.
comeuppance as well, too, right?
Yeah,
We
that
need
would be
that
even
as well.
better.
Or Farazan, one of them are going to die. I would assume Tar Miriel's going to die.
Yeah.
Or you get Elendil and her getting married, becoming ultimate king and queen.
Mm.
There you go. I
There you
ship it. I ship it. Okay.
go.
Anything else about this episode? Did we forget to
uh,
talk about somebody?
we did.
Oh,
It was
Galadriel
yeah,
and
yeah.
Adar.
Galadriel and Adar. We didn't get too much from them, but one thing kind of rubbed me a little bit the wrong way. But I think I'm kind of talking to myself into it more, having digested the episode for a little bit. So the main sort of crux of what we were supposed to get from the Galadriel and Adar thing this week is that you're led to believe that they are going to be working together to take down Sauron, sort of thing. And then at the end, Adar's like, "No, actually, you've just told me everything I wanted to know. You were really dumb for doing that, and now we're just gonna throw you away until we need you again." Um, I thought it made Galadriel look a little silly, which has happened a couple times this season. That I've mentioned it in past episodes that it just I've been struggling to get my arms around her this season after her being like my favorite character in the first season. I think it was a huge oversight on her part and made her look silly, and also made Adar look a little silly because like knowing how much experience he has dealing with Sauron, like she tells him straight up, like she is he is intentionally trying to get you to bring your army to march on Eregion to wipe all of us off the board. And like he doesn't even listen. He's just like, oh well, I'm gonna do it anyway. And like it just I don't know. Adar's has seemed so far like a very measured and calculated kind of character, and I felt like it the interactions between them this week sort of pulled both characters out of everything that we've known about them so far. So it didn't. It kind of hit me a little weird, I would say.
Yeah. I think it did finally though answer the question I've been having the whole time with it, which is how will the elves and the orcs be fighting Eregion?
Mhm.
That answer is becoming more and more clear now, especially now that Galadriel's like alliance of convenience is pretty much not existing
Over.
anymore, right?
Yeah.
So that seals it for me. It's like, okay, so Adar's just blinded by hatred to Sauron that he will just go attack anyway. Great. That makes more sense than probably what I was thinking was going to happen. It's like, how do you get Galadriel being okay with attacking them? It's like, okay, that's great. That seals that. And now you'll have Elrond and the rest of the elves arrive and be probably fighting the orcs who are trying to get into Eregion, right? And that now makes sense as we start seeing the way it's going to play out. And you're like, well, you know, seeing Sauron inside of there and how he gained control of Eregion too makes it make more sense to me as well than just him being in the forge and being like, I was picturing them making the rings and be like, what are these arrows doing? Coming in.
Yeah.
But now that we kind of see the panic and the stuff set in here, I'm like, okay, this all makes a lot more sense when I was than last week or 2 weeks ago when we're trying to figure out how does this happen? How do these two, you know, sides end up fighting the same city? And it was I think it does make more sense now. Does it make Galadriel kind of look like a fool? Yeah. But I like that, honestly. I think she is going to learn a lot from this type of stuff and it help her become the Galadriel we know later on in Middle Earth history.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, or even in just later seasons, like it just feels like she's been duped and like kind of in the dark a lot this season. And I hope that we start to build towards building that wise sort of sage character that we've grown to love her as in the Lord of the Rings movies. But outside of that, not really too much to talk about on their end. It was like two scenes, and it was basically their first conversation when she reveals all this stuff, and then their last conversation where he's like, "Thanks for revealing all that stuff." So not really too much to dig into on their end.
Yeah. Look, I kind of forgot all about they took such a big gap in Galadriel scenes. I'm like, oh yeah, we still have to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah,
So I do think these two episodes are going to be pretty packed of showing every single character. I think we're going to get every single character getting stuff done. We still have to figure out. I don't know. Is Theo done? Is Theo done, or is
sorry.
he doing stuff that we're going to see still?
I don't fucking know, man. I don't know.
It'd be a bummer for the actor if they ended up writing him out just because his mom left the show. Like,
Oh,
could
yeah,
you
I didn't
imagine? Like,
think of that. Yeah.
could you imagine landing a role in Lord of the Rings and then like your character is so dependent on another character and that actress just says, "I don't want to act anymore," and then they're like, "All right, we'll write your son out too." It's kind of like that sucks for him if that's what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah,
Um,
that does. I hadn't even thought of that, but that might, when they sent him off to I forget what the town is called, but that, he's like, "Oh, I've got things I have to promises I have to keep
yeah,
too."
yeah.
I hadn't even thought about if that was just their way of writing him out of the show, but maybe
Or at least for a
like
time, like maybe he pops up next season or 2 seasons from now, type of thing.
that
But
would be
like
my bet.
maybe he's off the board for a bit. Because
They've got to get some characters off the
We saw
board
a
too.
Rondeer this week, right? But it was a very short
Just in
scene.
the it was another narrative convenience scene where it opens up where it's like, oh, he just stumbles upon these two orcs and kills them and
Yeah,
reaches in
yeah,
their pocket and finds the exact map of where they're going. It's
yes.
like, all right.
So yeah, so he'll show up at Eregion, right? And
Yeah.
he'll be a part of it.
Yeah.
Um, So yes, I think we'll see everybody. We still haven't seen Isildur for a bit now, so we'll have to see him. I don't know. I feel like everybody's going to almost converge on Eregion, I think, except for Poppy, Nori, the Stranger,
I think so.
and Numenor.
And
Numenor.
Theo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Numenor. Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, it seems like, next week is going to be when all the shit starts to hit the fan. So confidently this time I could say, pedal to the metal from here.
Tomorrow we go to war. You got to make that tweet again on Wednesday.
Yeah. Man, I look like such an idiot posting that picture with, Elrond and his gear. I'm like, let's go, baby. It's time for war. Nope.
Not yet. Hold your horses, right? Yeah, not yet. Yeah, anything else? I think that's most of what happened this week.
Got all of my notes have been covered here. I guess we didn't really give the specifics on it, but we touched a little bit on Farazan looking into the Palantir and seeing Mount Doom, and I think it was the One Ring being forged. I could be wrong there, but he sees
Probably.
Sauron and all that stuff. So interesting to see where that goes as well. But don't really have much more on it at the moment. But yeah, that's basically it. That's all I got here.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll wrap us up here. We'll of course be back next week to talk about episode 7, which so far does not have a title yet that has been released, so we don't know what that's called. But it is written by the showrunners and Justin Dobble, who wrote this episode. So we'll see that one, and then of course the week after that we have episode 8, the finale of season 2. After that, we're going to talk some Game of Thrones, George R. R. Martin stuff, and then probably so just some other fun topics that we have coming up here on the podcast feed as we start, building up to the next Game of Thrones spinoff, which is releasing next year. So that'll be fun. We'll probably dive into, maybe we talk the story of Witcher 3 once Ron's done the game or something. There's a lot of stuff that we can have episodes about. We have a fun one that I have set that we'll hold on to that for a bit, but I have a fun idea that I think should be a lot of fun. But a fun idea that's a lot of fun.
Are a lot of fun.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm saying. Sometimes I'm just searching for words as I'm like checking my notes one last time. Okay. All right. At fantasyfolkpod on all of our social medias. Have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you next time when we go to war.
Hell yeah.